The Great Hall of the Galactic Consul was the largest room Daniel Vance had ever seen. It stretched out before him like a small city, with seats rising in circles toward a ceiling made of living crystal that showed the stars outside. 17 different alien species had sent their leaders to this place. Some had scales. Some had fur. Some had bodies made of light or shapes that hurt human eyes to look at. All of them were staring at the single human standing in the center of the floor. Daniel wore a simple gray uniform. He carried no weapons. He had no guards. Behind him, somewhere beyond the borders of this system, a human fleet waited for his signal. But here, in this moment, he was alone. High Arbiter Velith Khan looked down from his throne at the top of the chamber. He was tall, nearly 3 meters, with 4 eyes that glowed like dying stars and skin the color of dried blood. His species, the Verthani, had ruled this part of the galaxy for 40,000 years. They did not like humans. They did not like anyone, really, but they especially did not like the young species that had spread so quickly through the stars. "Come alone, Terran?" Velith Khan said. His voice was deep and cold. "Your ships stay outside our borders. You bring no weapons. Some might call this bravery. I call it stupidity." Daniel did not move. He had practiced this moment 1,000 times in his mind. He had trained his whole life for conversations like this one, though he had hoped he would never need to have it. "I come alone because what I need to say does not require weapons," he replied. His voice was calm and clear. "It only requires that you listen." Whispers moved through the hall like wind through leaves. The Vethkai, insect-like creatures with clicking mandibles, made sounds that might have been laughter. The Sarathian delegation, beings of living light, flickered in patterns Daniel could not read. "The Consul has heard enough from humanity," said Ambassador Torish of the Kethrani hegemony. He was a reptilian creature with green scales and teeth like knives. His people had been enemies of Earth for 200 years. "Your kind has been in space for barely 3 centuries. You expanded too fast. You took worlds that belonged to us. And now you dare to ask for this meeting?" After what happened at Meridian, Daniel felt his heart grow cold at that name, Meridian, the colony where 2,000 human ships had been destroyed without warning. 400,000 people killed in a single day. Men and women and children erased from existence because they had built homes on a world the Kethrani considered holy. "I know about Meridian," Daniel said quietly. "I lost my sister there. Her name was Maria. I lost my niece, Sophia, who was 7 years old. I lost my nephew, baby Lucas, who had just learned to walk." The hall went silent. "I did not come here to talk about Meridian," Daniel continued. "Not yet. I came to give you a warning," Velith Khan laughed. It was not a pleasant sound. "A warning? From a species that cannot even protect its own people. What could you possibly warn us about, little Terran?" Daniel reached slowly into his pocket. All around the chamber, guards raised their weapons. Energy beams and projectile guns and things Daniel had no name for, all pointed at his chest. But he only pulled out a small crystal, which he placed on the scanner in front of him. 3 days ago, our monitoring stations at the edge of the galaxy saw something. Something that has not been seen in this part of space for 1 million years. The crystal activated. Light filled the center of the chamber, forming a picture that made several of the delegates scream. It was a ship. But calling it a ship was like calling an ocean a puddle. It was the size of a small moon, covered with shapes that seemed to move and change even in the frozen image. Looking at it made Daniel feel sick, like his brain was trying to understand something it was never meant to see. "The harvesters have returned," Daniel said, "and they are coming here." The chamber exploded into noise. Delegates shouted at each other. Some called for calm. Others called him a liar. "Possible," Torish snarled. "The harvesters are a fairy tale. A story to scare children. The harvesters were real." Everyone turned to look at the corner of the chamber where a very old creature sat in shadow. Sage Morinth of the Eloair moved slowly into the light. Her species had lived for 100,000 years. They had seen empires rise and fall like waves on a beach. She was so old that her body looked like it might break apart at any moment, but her eyes were sharp and full of terrible memory. "I was young when they came before," she said. "Young by our counting. I watched them eat 17 worlds in a single turning. Trillions of lives ended. The old empires joined together to fight them, and we barely pushed them back. So many died that most species chose to forget, rather than remember. Then you understand, Daniel said. Morinth studied him with eyes that had seen more than any human could imagine. I understand the danger, human, but I do not understand you. Your kind has no reason to help us. After Meridian, after the punishments we gave you, after the worlds we took from your colonies, why would you warn us? It was a good question. Daniel had asked himself the same thing during the long journey to this place. Why help the people who had hurt his kind so badly? Why save the ones who had looked away while his family burned? Because when the harvesters come, they will not care who did what to whom. They will eat everything. Every world, every species, every living thing. Humanity has many problems with the Consul, but we would rather have living enemies than a dead galaxy. Velith Khan hit his staff against the floor. The sound echoed like thunder. Enough of this performance. Even if this danger is real, which I do not accept, what do you expect us to do? The Consul's fleets are powerful. We have protected this galaxy for thousands of years, without human help. Your fleets are impressive, Daniel agreed. Against normal enemies, they would win. But we have studied the Harvester ship. Its defenses are stronger than anything you have. Your weapons will not be enough. And human weapons will work when ours fail? Torish laughed like Daniel had told a joke. You truly think too much of yourselves. Daniel allowed himself a small smile. We have a saying on Earth. Necessity is the mother of invention. For 300 years, humanity has been the smallest voice in the galactic conversation. We have been conquered. We have been colonized. We have been pushed to the edges of space and had our worlds destroyed while the Consul did nothing. We survived not because we were the strongest, but because we never stopped finding new ways to adapt. He touched the crystal again. The image changed. This is the Threshold Protocol. For the past 100 years, humanity has been building weapons and plans designed to fight threats that could destroy us completely. We hoped we would never need them. The pictures that appeared were unlike anything the delegates had seen before. Weapons that bent space like paper. Ships that could walk through solid matter. Swarms of intelligent machines that could overwhelm any defense. And at the center of it all, something called the Prometheus Arraya device, so powerful that the scientists in the room went pale just looking at its energy readings. You have been building weapons of destruction, Velith Khan said slowly. This breaks the agreement of 17 systems. We have been building tools for survival, Daniel corrected, because no one else would protect us. But that is a talk for another day. Right now, I am giving you a choice. He paused and let the silence grow heavy. Humanity's ready to share the Threshold Protocol with the Consul. We will fight beside you against the Harvesters. Together, we will have the best chance to survive. In return, we ask only two things. To be treated as equals, and justice for Meridian. The future of the galaxy hung on what would happen next. Ambassador. Torish rose from his seat so fast that his chair fell backward with a crash. His green scales had turned dark with anger, and his clawed hands gripped the railing in front of him hard enough to leave marks. You dare make demands? His voice was like stones grinding together. You come here with your threats dressed up as warnings, your weapons dressed up as gifts, and you think we will bargain with you. Daniel stood perfectly still in the center of the chamber. He had expected this reaction. In fact, he would have been worried if it had not come. The Kathrani had hated humanity since the first human ships had crossed into their territory 2 centuries ago. They saw humans as pests, like insects that had somehow learned to build starships. I expect you to be smart enough to know when you are in danger, Daniel said. His voice did not rise, but somehow it filled the entire hall. The Harvesters will reach the outer systems in 18 months. Without our help, the numbers say, you have about a 12% chance of surviving. With our help, that goes up to 67%. And if we refuse your generous offer? Velith Khan asked from his throne. His 4 eyes were narrow with suspicion. Daniel's face became very calm and very serious. It was the face of a man who had already accepted what might come next. Then humanity will pull back to our core worlds and use the threshold protocol on our own. We think we have about a 41% chance of survival that way. Not great, but better than yours. We will be sad when the civilizations of the Consul are gone, and we will remember that we tried to save them. Nobody spoke. Nobody moved. The only sound was the soft hum of the station's life support systems and the distant pulse of engines keeping everything in orbit. Delegate Vren of the Morith Collective broke the silence. He was a tall, thin being with skin like polished metal and eyes that glowed soft blue. His people were scientists and builders, not warriors, and they had always been friendlier to humans than most. These numbers, Vren said carefully. Where do they come from? How can you be so sure about survival chances? We have been studying the harvesters since we first learned they existed, Daniel replied. We found old records, ancient databases from species that died fighting them. We built models. We ran simulations. Millions of them. He looked around the chamber. I know you do not trust humanity. I know many of you think we are lying or exaggerating, but I am telling you the truth. The threat is real, and we are offering real help. Help that comes with conditions, Torish spat. Help that requires us to give you what you have always wanted. Justice for 400,000 murdered people is not an unreasonable request. They were not murdered. They were trespassing on sacred ground. Our laws, your laws, say it is acceptable to kill children for building sandcastles on the wrong beach. Daniel's voice was still calm, but there was something hard underneath it now. I am not here to debate the morality of Meridian. Not today. I am here to tell you that something much worse than the Kathrani is coming, and the only way any of us survive is if we work together. High Arbiter Velithcon leaned back in his throne and pressed the tips of his long fingers together. He was thinking, calculating, trying to find the angle in Daniel's words. The Verthani had not ruled the Consul for 40,000 years by being stupid. They had done it by being careful and clever and always looking for advantage. Let us say, for the sake of discussion, that this threat is real, Velithcon said slowly. Let us say that humanity does possess these weapons you describe. Why should we believe you would actually share them with us? What stops you from holding back your best technology while we spend our fleets against the harvesters? Then, when we are weak and they are defeated, you take what you want. Daniel nodded. A fair question. The answer is simple. We cannot beat the harvesters alone. Our 41% survival chance assumes we run and hide, not that we fight. If we try to fight them with just our own forces, that number drops to less than 5%. He spread his hands. We need you as much as you need us. Perhaps more. That is why I am here, alone, making myself vulnerable. Because this is not a trick or a trap. This is desperation dressed in diplomatic clothes. Sage Morinth made a sound that might have been a laugh. Honest desperation. That is something this chamber does not see very often. The Elawari find this amusing, Torish said bitterly. Of course you do. Your people are so old that you have forgotten how to care about anything. But some of us remember what humans have done. Some of us remember the wars they started, the treaties they broke. Though we started no wars, Daniel interrupted. We broke no treaties. Every conflict between humans and other species began when someone else fired first. Every treaty we supposedly broke was written to be impossible to follow. He turned to face Torish directly. Your people wrote the Meridian Accords. You know what was in them? You know the settlement limits were designed so that any human colony would eventually violate them just by having children. You wanted an excuse to destroy us and you found one. Toresh's scales flushed even darker. You accuse me of... I accuse you of nothing. I am stating facts that are in the public record for anyone to read. Daniel turned back to face the full assembly. Humanity has made mistakes. We have been aggressive at times, too quick to expand, too slow to understand the cultures we encountered. We are not perfect, but we are not the villains your histories make us out to be. We are just a young species trying to survive in a galaxy that has decided we do not belong. The chamber was quiet again. Daniel could see some of the delegates talking to each other in low voices. A few were checking devices, probably looking up the records he had mentioned. Others simply stared at him, their alien faces impossible to read. "We will take a vote," Velithcon announced. "The question is simple. Does the Consul accept the human offer of alliance against the alleged harvester threat, including the conditions of equal status and review of the Meridian incident?" "I call for immediate rejection," Torres said. "This is clearly a trick to gain power and influence that humanity has not earned." "I call for acceptance," said Delegate Vren. "The risk of ignoring this warning is too great. I abstain," said Sage Morinth. "The Elowary have seen too much to make quick decisions." One by one, the delegations announced their positions. Daniel watched and counted. It was going to be close. Very close. When the final vote came in, his heart sank. Rejected. By a margin of 3 votes. Velithcon smiled, showing teeth that were too sharp and too many. "It seems the Consul has made its decision, Terran. You may return to your people and tell them that their offer was declined. We will face any threats that come with our own strength, as we always have." Daniel stood very still for a long moment. He had known this might happen. He had prepared for it. But knowing something might happen and watching it actually happen were two very different things. "I understand," he said finally. "I hope you are right about your own strength. I truly do. Because if you are wrong, there will be no second chances." He turned and walked toward the exit, his footsteps echoing in the suddenly silent chamber. Behind him, he could hear the delegates already beginning to argue about what should happen next. Some wanted to arrest him. Others wanted to send him away quickly before he caused more trouble. None of them knew what was already in motion. None of them understood that the demonstration had not yet begun. Daniel Vance had come to give a warning. Now he would have to show them why they should have listened. The guards took Daniel to a room on the lower levels of the station. They called it a guest chamber, but the locked door and the armed soldiers outside told a different story. It was a cell, dressed in nice furniture. Daniel did not mind. He sat in a chair by the window and looked out at the stars. Somewhere out there, beyond the light of these suns, the harvester's ship was moving closer. Every hour brought it nearer. Every hour the Consul wasted with their politics and their pride was an hour they could not get back. He had been in the room for about 3 hours when the door opened. The woman who walked in looked human. She had dark hair cut short and eyes the color of honey. She wore a simple white dress that seemed to glow faintly in the dim light. But there was something strange about the way she moved, something too smooth, too perfect. And when Daniel looked into her eyes, he saw a shimmer there that marked her as something more than human. She was one of the Ascended. Humans who had undergone the consciousness expansion procedures that the Consul had banned decades ago. The process changed people, made them smarter and faster, and able to perceive things normal humans could not. It also made them something not quite human anymore. "You are playing a dangerous game, Daniel Vance," she said. She sat down across from him and crossed her legs like they were old friends meeting for coffee. "I am playing the only game there is," Daniel replied. "Who are you?" "My name used to be Catherine Price. That was a long time ago. Before I changed." She smiled, but there was no warmth in it. "I have been watching humanity for many years. I helped design parts of the Threshold Protocol, though my name was removed from the records. I also did other things." "What other things?" Catherine tilted her head like a bird examining something interesting. "I helped create the evidence that made the Consul put sanctions on Earth. I arranged the border disputes that cost us 17 colony worlds. And I made sure the Kathrani found out about the Meridian settlement."
Alio.
Daniel felt like someone had poured ice water into his chest. His hands gripped the arms of his chair so hard his knuckles turned white. "You killed 400,000 people. It gave humanity a reason to come together, to stop begging for scraps from the Consul's table and start building something worthy of what we could become." Her voice was calm, like she was explaining a math problem. "Do you think the Threshold Protocol would exist if we had been comfortable? If we had been accepted? Suffering makes species stronger. I simply made the suffering happen faster, my sister." The words came out rough and broken. "My niece. My nephew. You killed them. They died for a greater cause. As you might die if your plan here fails. Daniel forced himself to breathe. His vision had gone red at the edges. His whole body wanted to leap across the space between them and wrap his hands around her throat. But he was not stupid. An Ascended would break him in half before he could touch her. And killing her would not bring Maria back, would not bring Sophia back, would not bring baby Lucas back. Why are you telling me this? He asked when he could speak again. Because you need to understand what is really happening. Catherine leaned forward, and for a moment something almost like human emotion crossed her face. The harvesters are real. They are coming, but they are not mindless destroyers. Think of them as gardeners. They remove civilizations that have stopped growing, species that have become lazy and stagnant, empires that exist only to maintain their own power. That is insane. The Consul has been stagnant for 30,000 years. They have crushed every new idea, destroyed every species that might challenge them, kept the galaxy frozen in a pattern that benefits only them. The harvesters will look at them and see weeds that need to be pulled, and humanity. Catherine's smile returned, and this time it looked almost proud. Humanity is wild. We change. We grow. We adapt. We refuse to accept that anything is impossible. We have done terrible things and wonderful things, and we never stop doing either. She stood up. The harvesters might spare us, or they might not. But whatever happens, the old order is ending. What comes next depends on people like you. She walked toward the door, then stopped. One more thing. The delegates have already voted to reject your offer. Veleth Khan convinced them that you are bluffing. That humanity's weapons are not as powerful as you claimed, that they can handle the harvesters on their own. A thin smile crossed her face. You will need to show them something they cannot ignore. What do you suggest? There is a Kithrani battle fleet coming to this system right now. 12 dreadnoughts, sent to arrest you as a criminal for threatening the Consul. They will arrive in 6 hours. She opened the door. I suggest you show them why that would be a mistake. Then she was gone, and Daniel was alone with his thoughts and his rage and the weight of everything he had just learned. For a long time, he did not move. He sat in his chair and stared at the wall and tried to make sense of what Catherine had told him. His family had been killed on purpose. Not by the Kithrani, not really, but by a human. By one of their own people, who had decided that their deaths were acceptable losses in a plan they had never agreed to be part of. He thought about Maria, who had always believed the best about people. He thought about Sophia, who had loved animals and wanted to be a veterinarian when she grew up. He thought about Lucas, who had just learned to say his first word, which was bird, because there had been colorful birds outside his window every morning. They were gone. They had been gone for 3 years. And now Daniel knew that their deaths had been arranged by someone who thought she knew better than everyone else. What humanity needed? He could have used this information to destroy Catherine. He could have broadcast it to every news service in the galaxy, shown everyone what the Ascended really were. Turned humanity against its own enhanced members. It would have been easy. It would have felt good, but it would not help anyone survive what was coming. Daniel closed his eyes and made a choice. He would deal with Catherine later. He would find a way to make sure she answered for what she had done. But right now, the harvesters were coming, and the Consul had rejected humanity's offer of help. And a Kithrani fleet was about to arrive to arrest him. One problem at a time. He reached into his collar and pulled out a small device that looked like a button. It was a communicator, hidden in a place the guards had not thought to check. He pressed it twice, paused, then pressed it 3 more times. On a ship hidden in the shadow of a moon at the edge of the system. A crew of humans received his signal and began to prepare. They had hoped they would not need to use their backup plan. But they had always known they might. 6 hours until the Kithrani fleet arrived. That was plenty of time to get ready. Daniel put the communicator away and leaned back in his chair. For the first time since this all began, he felt something like calm settle over him. The path forward was clear now. The Consul had chosen to ignore his warning. They had chosen to trust in their own power. They had chosen wrong. Now he would show them exactly what that choice would cost them. And when they saw, what humanity could really do, they would understand why they should have listened from the beginning. The Kathrani fleet came out of faster-than-light travel exactly on schedule. 12 dreadnoughts, each one a kilometer long, covered with weapons that could turn a planet into dust. They formed a perfect circle around the Consul station, blocking every possible escape route. On the station's observation deck, the delegates gathered to watch. Most of them looked pleased. Ambassador Torish could barely contain his joy. His scales had turned bright green, the Kathrani color of satisfaction. "Bring the Terran here," Velith Khan commanded. "Let him see what happens to those who threaten the Consul." Guards dragged Daniel onto the deck. His hands were bound behind his back, and there was a bruise on his face where someone had hit him. But his eyes were calm as he looked out the massive window at the Kathrani ships. "Your gamble has failed, human," Torish said. He walked closer to Daniel, close enough that his breath was hot on Daniel's face. It smelled like rotting meat. "You'll be taken back to Kathrani space. You will be tried for crimes against the Galactic Order, and then you will be executed as a lesson to your pathetic species." Daniel said nothing. He just watched the fleet. No clever words. Torish continued. "No more speeches about working together? No more lies about threats from ancient monsters?" He laughed, a harsh barking sound. "I thought humans were supposed to be good at talking, but I think you finally understand. You are nothing. Your species is nothing, and soon everyone will know it." The first sign that something was wrong came from the lead dreadnought. Its running lights flickered, just for a second, like a candle in a breeze. Then they went dark completely. Then its weapons, those massive cannons that could crack open a moon, powered down one by one. Then its engines, the great drives that pushed it through space, fell silent. Within 30 seconds, the most powerful warship in the Kathrani fleet was dead in space. It drifted slowly, pulled by the gentle gravity of the station, completely powerless. Then the same thing happened to the second ship, and the third, and all the rest. In less than 2 minutes, 12 of the most advanced vessels in the galaxy had been turned into floating metal boxes. Not destroyed, not damaged, just switched off like someone had pulled a plug. The observation deck was silent. Every delegate stared at the window with expressions of shock and fear. Even Velith Khan had risen from his seat, his 4 eyes wide. "What is happening?" he demanded. "What have you done?" "I told you," Daniel said. His voice was quiet but somehow filled the entire room. "Humanity has been preparing. Your ships are not destroyed. We do not kill unless we have to. But every system they have has been locked down by a program that got into their computers the moment they entered this system. They will get control back in about 6 hours. Plenty of time for them to think about whether they really want to continue this mission." Torish was screaming orders into his communication device. No response came. The ships just hung there, silent and dark against the stars. "The Threshold Protocol includes many tools like this one," Daniel continued. "Weapons that stop enemies without killing them. Plans that win without destroying. We made them because we knew we would always be outnumbered. We knew we would always have fewer ships, fewer soldiers, fewer resources. So we had to find ways to fight smarter instead of fighting harder." He turned to face the assembly. "Against the harvesters, we will need to use our more dangerous weapons. But the idea is the same. We do not win by being the strongest. We win by being the cleverest." The guards who had been holding Daniel stepped back. Their weapons were still pointed at him, but their hands were shaking. Sage Marinth was the first to speak. Her ancient voice cut through the fear like a knife through fog. "You could have done this at any time. You could have shut down our fleets, taken revenge for Meridian, claimed whatever you wanted. Why did you not? Because revenge does not help anyone. Because dead enemies cannot become friends later. Because humanity does not want to destroy the galaxy. We just want to live in it." Daniel's restraints fell away from his wrists. They had been unlocked the moment the Kathrani fleet went dark. "We are offering you partnership, not surrender. We are offering you life, not death. But we will not beg anymore. Never again." High Arbiter Velith Khan slowly sat back down in his chair. For the first time since Daniel had arrived, he looked uncertain. The Verthani had ruled by being stronger than everyone else. They had never faced a situation where strength did not matter. "How do we know you will not use these weapons against us later?" he asked. "How do we know this is not the beginning of a human conquest?" "You do not know," Daniel admitted. "Just like we do not know if you will keep your word if we make a deal. Trust has to start somewhere. I am offering to start it here today by saving your lives instead of taking them." Delegate Vren stepped forward. His metal skin was reflecting the light from the disabled ships outside. "I change my vote to acceptance. Whatever doubts I had about human weapons are gone. We need them on our side." One by one, other delegates changed their votes. Even species that had been enemies of humanity for centuries looked at those dead ships and understood what they meant. If humans could do this without even trying, what else could they do? The final count was overwhelming. Only the Kathrani voted against the alliance, and even Torish looked pale and sick as he cast his ballot. "The Consul accepts the human offer," Velith Khan announced. His voice was flat and tired. "We will share resources, information, and strategic planning. In return, humanity will have equal status in the Consul, and there will be an official investigation into the Meridian incident." Daniel nodded. "Thank you. I know this is not easy for many of you. I know you do not trust us. But I promise you, when the harvesters come, you will be glad we are on your side." He looked out the window one more time at the drifting Kathrani ships. In 6 hours, they would come back online, and their crews would have to decide whether to follow their orders or accept the new reality. Most of them would accept it. They did not have much choice. For 300 years, humanity had been the smallest voice in the galactic conversation. They had been ignored, attacked, colonized, and almost destroyed. They had lost worlds, lost people, lost hope more times than anyone could count. But they had never stopped fighting. They had never stopped learning. They had never stopped preparing for the day when they would have to prove their worth. That day had come. And now, the real work could begin. 18 months until the harvesters arrived. 18 months to build an army from species that had been enemies for thousands of years. 18 months to combine technology and strategies from 100 different civilizations into something that could stand against the oldest threat in the universe. It would not be easy. It might not even be possible. But for the first time in a long time, Daniel Vance felt something he had almost forgotten how to feel. Hope. 18 months passed like a held breath. The galaxy had never seen anything like it. Species that had been killing each other for thousands of years were now building weapons together. Engineers from a dozen worlds worked side by side in factories that ran day and night. Scientists shared secrets that their governments had kept hidden for generations. Old enemies became uncomfortable allies, then reluctant partners. Then something that almost looked like friends. Daniel Vance stood on the bridge of the Constellation, the flagship of the United Galactic Fleet. It was the largest ship ever built by any civilization. Created from human designs but constructed with materials and technology from every member species of the Consul. Its hull was Kathrani armor. Its engines were Verthani drives. Its weapons were human inventions built with alien precision. Around him, the bridge crew was a mix of species that would have been impossible to imagine 2 years ago. Lieutenant Kevin Park sat at the weapons station, his fingers moving across controls that could unleash more destruction than any single person had ever commanded. Next to him was a Kathrani tactical officer named Vetherin, whose green scales had faded to a calmer blue since he started working with humans. At the strategic planning station, an Enowari advisor older than human civilization whispered calculations that no computer could match. A Vethkai communications specialist clicked and chirped, translating between dozens of languages in real time. They had come so far. They had built something no one thought possible. Now they would find out if it was enough. "Contact," Kevin announced. His voice was steady, but his face was pale. "The harvester ship has entered the system." The main view screen lit up with an image that made Daniel's stomach clench, even though he had seen it hundreds of times in simulations. The harvester vessel was bigger than their projections had suggested. It was the size of a small planet, its surface covered with shapes that moved and changed like living things. Just looking at it felt wrong, like staring at something that did not belong in the universe. "All ships report ready," Vetheran said. His claws were tapping against his console in a nervous rhythm. "Prometheus Array is online," Kevin added. "Ready for deployment?" Daniel took a breath. In the months of preparation, they had learned more about the harvesters. They were not gardeners, as Catherine had claimed. They were not removing stagnant civilizations to make room for new growth. They were simply consumers, creatures that had been eating the energy of living worlds since before the first stars formed. They did not negotiate. They did not show mercy. They just fed. There would be no talking. No deals. Only survival or death. "Open a channel," Daniel said. "All frequencies." The communications officer made an adjustment. "Channel open. This is Daniel Vance of the United Galactic Fleet, speaking to the harvester vessel. You have entered space that belongs to the living. You will find no easy meal here. Turn back now, or face the consequences." Silence. The harvester ship continued forward without acknowledgement, without response, without any sign that it had heard or cared about his words. Then it began to accelerate, moving toward the fleet with the slow certainty of a predator that had never known fear. "I guess that answers that," Kevin muttered. Daniel nodded. He had expected nothing else. "All ships, attack formation Omega. Prometheus Array, begin primary fire sequence." What happened next was not a battle in any normal sense. It was chaos and destruction on a scale that had never been seen before. Weapons that tore holes in the fabric of space itself, shields that bent physics in impossible ways. Ships dying by the hundreds, their crews screaming prayers in a dozen languages as the harvester. Vessels' defenses swept them away like dust, but they did not break. They did not run. The Kathrani ships charged forward in formations they had perfected over millennia, drawing fire so that human vessels could get closer. The Yellowware moved through the battle like ghosts, their ancient knowledge letting them predict attacks before they happened. The Verthani stood their ground with the stubborn pride that had made them rulers of the galaxy, refusing to retreat even as their ships burned. And at the center of it all, the Prometheus Array fired beam after beam of focused antimatter, punching holes in the harvester's hide that healed almost as fast as they were made. "It is not enough," Vetheran said. His scales had gone white with fear. "Its regeneration is faster than our damage output." Daniel watched the tactical display. He could see the numbers, see the projections, see the slow march toward defeat. They were hurting the harvester, but not fast enough. In another hour, maybe two, their fleet would be gone, and the beast would continue on to devour everything in its path. "What about the weak point?" he asked. "The one our analysts identified?" "Still there," Kevin reported. "But getting a clear shot is almost impossible. Its defenses prioritize that area." Daniel closed his eyes. He thought about Maria, about Sophia, about baby Lucas who had loved birds. He thought about Catherine and her talk of suffering making species stronger. He thought about everyone who had died to get them to this moment. Then he made a decision. "All ships, concentrate fire on the following coordinates. Everything you have. Hold nothing back." He sent the targeting data across the fleet. "Prometheus Array, prepare for synchronized burst on my command. That will take us directly into its primary weapon range." Vetheran said. "I know, the losses will be severe." "I know that too." Daniel opened his eyes and looked at the Kathrani officer. 2 years ago, this being's people had killed his family. Now they were fighting side by side. But if we do not try, we all die anyway. This way some of us have a chance. Vetheran held his gaze for a long moment. Then he bowed his head slightly, a gesture of respect that Kathrani rarely gave to anyone outside their own species. "Then let us make that chance count." The fleet moved as one. 1,000 ships from 100 worlds, all heading toward the same point on the harvester's surface. The monster's defenses screamed to life, cutting down vessel after vessel, but the survivors kept coming. Fire. The combined power of the United Galactic Fleet struck a single spot on the Harvester's hull. The Prometheus array added its own contribution, a beam of pure destruction that would have turned a star into ash for one terrible moment. Nothing seemed to happen. Then the Harvester cracked open. Its impossible surface split like breaking glass, and something inside it screamed, in a frequency that every being in the fleet heard in their bones rather than their ears. Light poured out of the wound, brighter than anything Daniel had ever seen. And then the whole thing collapsed in on itself with a flash that blinded every sensor in the system. When the light faded, nothing remained but expanding debris. The silence on the bridge lasted 3 seconds. Then the cheering started. Not just from the human crew, but from everyone. Kithrani voices mixed with Vertani howls and Elaware songs and the clicking joy of the Vethkai. They had done it. Against everything, against all the hatred and fear that had divided them. They had come together and won. Daniel allowed himself to smile. They had lost many ships, many lives. The cost had been terrible, but they had survived. They had proven that when the galaxy worked together, there was nothing it could not overcome. Sage Morinth appeared beside him. Her ancient face was unreadable, but her eyes were bright. "You have done something remarkable, human," she said. "You united the galaxy not through force, but through necessity. Through showing us what we could be, we just wanted to survive," Daniel said. "That is what makes your species special. You wanted only to survive, and in doing so, you saved us all." She placed a withered hand on his arm. "The old order is ending. What comes next may be better than what came before. Because of you." Daniel looked out at the debris field where the Harvester had been. Beyond it, the stars burned bright and clear. Somewhere out there were more Harvesters, more threats, more challenges that no one could predict. The alliance they had built would be tested again and again. But they had proven something today. They had proven that enemies could become allies. That hate could give way to trust. That a lone human standing before a hostile council could change the fate of a galaxy just by refusing to give up.